Hey guys, it's Alexis, aka The Sloth Reader, and I'm here today to do my Spookathon wrap-up. So, Spookathon was only the second readathon I've ever participated in, because I usually am not too good at readathons, and I spent the last 2 days of the readathon crazy sick. So I almost didn't think I was going to make it, but I finished the last book of the readathon literally like at 11:52. So I made it by the skin of my teeth, but I made it. So needless to say, I'm super proud of myself. I read 3 books over the course of the Spookathon, and they ranged from like 316 pages to 390 pages, so I easily read over 1,000 pages during the readathon, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that because I usually cannot read that fast, but the circumstances of the week really allowed me to do that, despite the fact that I had like 3 tests this week. And so yeah, I'm super proud of myself, so I will just go ahead and get into it. So the Spookathon had 5 challenges, and I'm happy to say that I met every single one with the 3 books that I read. The first challenge was to read a 2016 release. The second one was to read a thriller. The third was to read a book with a spooky word in the title. The next was to read a book with red on the cover. And lastly was to read a book with a creature in it. And I'm happy to say that all 3 of the books I read basically satisfied the last 3 challenges. They all had red on the cover, they all had a spooky word in the title, and they all featured a creature in them. So I'm happy to say that those were like easily cleared because all 3 of the books I read followed that. And then I read another book that was a 2016 release, and it was also like a paranormal thriller. So I'll just go ahead and get into it. The first book I read was Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendar Blake. I decided to pick this one up because I had recently read 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake, and I really loved it. And so I know that this was her first book, and so I decided to pick it up. Obviously, as you can see, it has red on the cover. Blood is a spooky word, and it's about ghosts. And so this follows the story of a young man named Cass who is basically like a ghost hunter. He travels around the world and kills ghosts, and a lot of people have compared it to Supernatural, and I would say it is pretty similar in that aspect. But yeah, so it's basically about this ghost hunter. Well, he arrives in a city in Canada to hunt down a ghost known as Anna Dressed in Blood, who is the spirit of Anna Korolov, who was murdered viciously in the 1950s, and basically she showed up in her house after her murder, and she has viciously slain anyone who steps foot in the house. So one night, Cass goes with a group of friends who are like trying to prank him, and for whatever reason, when he goes in the house, Anna does not kill him. And so it's basically about him trying to figure out what makes Anna so vicious, what makes Anna so strong, and why is she so different from the other ghosts he's met before. So this definitely is paranormal, and I would say it is a paranormal romance in a sense, but I really loved it. Something about Kendar Blake's writing style I really love. I find that she's very brutal in a lot of ways. She really doesn't skip out on the gory details, and I really like that. And so this was super enjoyable for me. It was a great way to kick off the readathon, and I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I picked up actually was a DNF. It was on my original TBR, and that is Blood and Salt by Kim Liggett. I gave this one 100 pages before I decided to DNF it. I just really wasn't connecting to the characters or the story. And it kind of is the kind of, like, I don't like it when books start the plot off immediately. I like it when it takes some time for the plot to really get going. I don't really like to just, like, start a book and I'm already, like, in the middle of things and I'm like, oh my god, what is happening? And that definitely is what this book did. I mean, the plot started kicking off on, like, page 12 and I was like, it's a little too early for me. And I got to the point where there was, like, a love triangle introduced, and I was just like, I'm not here for that. So I ended up DNFing this around 100 pages. The book I picked up was not one that I was intending to read, but since I was already on a Kendar Blake run, I decided to pick up an anthology that she is a part of, and that is Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, which is a collection of 14 stories that are all kind of thrillers. Some of them are paranormal, some of them aren't. overall, I really did enjoy this. I mean, I didn't really hate any of the stories I read, and they were all kind of inspired by like a scary movie or a scary book or a scary TV show, that kind of thing. And overall, I really did enjoy it. There were some of them I definitely loved a lot more than others. My favorites were the J. Kristoff short story Sleepless, the Marie Lu story The Girl Without a Face, and Emmeline by Kat Winters. Overall, I really, really did enjoy them. I read that pretty quick. It took me like 2 days to read the whole thing, just because I was kind of picking them up here and there. But overall, I really enjoyed them. Typically, I don't enjoy short stories very much just because I find myself unable to really connect to anything that's going on because it's over in 20 seconds. But yeah, but I really did overall really, really enjoy this, and I think my average rating of all of them brought it to a 3.74, so I just went ahead and rounded that up to 4 stars. And the last book I picked up for the readathon was my favorite, actually, that I read, and I was so surprised because this book sounded intriguing, but I really wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. But pretty much, like, this was such an awesome story, and it was super diverse for being like a paranormal thriller, and that was Shallow Graves by Callie Wallace. I really ended up enjoying this. I gave it 4.5 stars. And like I can't even really explain like why I enjoyed it as much as I did. It was just that like every new page I was going, yes! I was just like so excited by like every new piece of information that came out, and I found the story super enjoyable, and I really loved the main character. This follows a 17-year-old named Breezy, who basically crawls out of a grave one day with no memory of how she was killed, how she was put in that grave, and she realizes that she's been dead for over a year. And she wakes up with the ability to kill killers. So she can sense people who have committed not necessarily murder, but anyone who's taken another life. She can sense that on them, and so she kind of goes on this journey to like kill killers. Very death-proof style, and so she goes on this journey to kill people who have killed before, and so it's kind of about her simultaneously trying to figure out like why she has these powers, what is up with her, while also encountering finding out that there are other supernatural creatures that exist, and also being hunted down by this cult that wishes to free creatures like her. And I loved it. The main character is half Irish, half Chinese, and she talks a little bit about that, like about growing up under a Chinese father. The main character is bisexual, which when I found that out, I was like, yes, 2016, here we are! And I was super excited. Like, I literally, like, put my book down and was just like, yes, yes. And there is also a pair of Middle Eastern brothers in this book, and one of them is on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. He talks about kissing a guy, and it kind of leads you to believe that that is his sexual preference, and so when I found that out, I was like, I can't with this book anymore. But overall, I really loved the story. I liked the way it was written. It kind of goes back and forth a lot between the present and also a little bit in the future and also in her past, and it talks about like all of her memories and stuff that kind of gather up into the point, and I loved the ending. The ending, most people would probably say, is pretty anticlimactic, but I really loved it, especially because the ending kind of talks a lot about rape culture and feminism, and by that point I was already in love with this book, and that just made it like 10 times better. So I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars, and I highly recommend it. So those were all of the books I picked up during the Spookathon. Like I said, I was super proud of myself. This is the second ever readathon I've ever participated in, and I did much better in this one than I did in the first one I participated in. Like, I failed the first one heavily. So this actually kind of made me think that maybe I can participate in readathons a lot more. ones that don't have like a book, like a minimum required book challenge, because I'll fail those. But I really loved everything I read this week, which made it super enjoyable, and I just want to say thank you to the host, Paige from Paige's Pages, Shannon from Bookerly, and Kayla from Books and Lala. I love all three of their channels, and all three of those women are super, super incredible, and I loved seeing Kayla and Shannon's daily vlogs. It made the Spookathon so much more enjoyable, and I just want to thank you ladies so much, because I had such a great time this week. And that is it for my Spookathon wrap-up, and I will see you guys soon with another video.